And welcome to Right Talk with Mike Lee. This evening I'm going to have a show that I've been really anticipating. I think my guests are Sheldon Lamey from Pflugerville and Richard Frank, my good friend Richard Frank, and I think we're good friends. He had
We'll see how the program goes and see if you feel that way afterwards.
You may have heard me mention many times on my shows that most of the people that I met in Austin, since I've been in Austin, good people especially, I met through Richard. I think I met Sheldon through Richard when I went to a borrow meeting over at the Victory Grill.
Right.
I think that's where we first met. But Sheldon is very active in the black community in Pflugerville and in Austin. I met you at a borrow meeting, but you founded, is it Pflugerville Black Business?
Yes, yes, I did. We founded Pflugerville Black Business Builders back in 2016, December 2016. And basically we're an organization where we meet every week and help educate and also promote black businesses in the Central Texas area. We give people the actual knowledge and education they need to grow their business, and also able to network and also give referrals to different black-owned businesses within Central Texas.
And Richard is, as I said, is a friend of mine. I don't know when we met Richard. It's been a while now. But Richard has a meeting. He has an education meeting that I attend every it's every Wednesday. But I try to come as many Wednesdays as I can, so I can increase my political education. And this show tonight, I believe, will be very educational from a political standpoint, at least for me, for sure.
Right.
But I would be remiss if I didn't say my often repeated claim that I make on almost all my shows. I tend to make it on all, which is I say, what is good for the black community is good for the community.
Right.
And I'm going to say it until they shoot me. And as I told you before we started, Sheldon, I want to get shot. I want to be assassinated. You know, regular people just get shot. I want to be assassinated.
Well, you gotta be able to actually make a sacrifice for your people, because that's the problem in the black community, is that we don't have enough people that are willing to make a stand and do what's right for our people. And it all starts with the individual. What you have in your heart, what's actually going to show out in the community.
You do realize telling people that you like to be shot is open up the doors for quite a lot of opportunities out there for people who really don't
put
like
that
to be
bullseye on
shot.
your back.
But you get, Richard? One of the things I think when I first came to one of your Wednesday meetings was you welcome me. You say, Michael, I'm glad that you're in town. Now people have somebody else to hate because I'm a well-known black conservative and well-known for being in the Republican Party.
I've been knowing Richard for probably almost 10 years now, over 10 years. And he's a good brother. I know he got a strong heart and individual. You know, he's very, how can you say, he tells it like it is while sugarcoating it, so which a lot of people need to be able to hear nowadays, because we ain't had a lot of people that would say something, one thing to your face and do something behind your back, do a whole U-turn.
I really want to kind of piggyback on that, because I think one of the issues we have with everybody speaking right now, and I think we got Donald Trump in office, and they're saying Donald Trump is a straight talker.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Donald Trump says what he thinks is going to get people excited.
Right.
There's a difference between straight talk and getting people excited. To take the varnish off of truth and put it in front of people is oftentimes going to upset people. But the reality is, if we're not upset, we're not paying attention. If you're not upset about the things that are happening in this country right now, you're not paying attention. And everybody should be upset about something, because we're not where we need to be yet. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying we can't live a happy life and be joyous in our hearts when we go home and we're with families, so on and so on. But when you look at the despair in this country, when you look at the have-nots in this country who are fighting amongst themselves and leaving the haves to themselves and let them do what they're doing, it's a real issue for me. And I think the reality is we've been aiming at each other and pointing at each other, fighting each other, and not pointing at what the problem creates, where it's being created. And pointing that out shouldn't make me the bad guy. But I go back to realizing that as long as someone else is doing it, as long as that person over here is doing the work, you're fine. But as soon as you start going here and asking somebody else to do the work, they're coming for you. And that's where we are right now. And we've always been that way, by the way.
Thank you, Richard. That kind of leads into my topic, which is about social justice. And I'm sure you have a few things to say about that.
I'm all suited down, bro.
If we get this first clip by Ben Shapiro, it's talking about social justice. I've got a couple of video clips I want you guys to look at. Because I don't know what social justice is. I really don't. I really don't. Tell me what it is, Rick.
How many different justices are there? I mean, every time I turn around, we're adding justice to something, something. Environmental justice.
Economic justice.
Yes.
Well, my definition of social justice is it's something that helps disenfranchised people move ahead. Is that especially within America, like you said, like you said, if the haves will give the have nothing, just half of what they got, then you have to have something. So the problem is that I feel is that in our country is that a lot of people are turning a deaf ear. They see things that's happening on TV, on videotape, on camera of what's happening to people of color, and not turn a blind eye to it and thinking, well, the people deserve it or anything. So you got to be able to have a voice to be able to. You got to have people out in the community have to actually speak the voice of the people that are being disenfranchised. So.
But one of the things I realized when I was probably in third grade, there were a lot of things that came to me in third and fourth grade, was that everybody's not going to make it. And some people have special talent, skills, or peculiar situations that will enable them to acquire more than others.
Right.
So to me, to expect equal outcomes is not really, may or may not be reasonable in a free society.
Well, but I think that goes to the value system that and especially in America, that we've created this false narrative of values, primarily by having stuff. And the things that we value right now, basically we've created that conversation. I mean, the reality is diamonds basically are worthless. But if you have a diamond on your hand, suddenly someone thinks you're worth millions of dollars. Diamonds are worthless rocks. The most abundant material in the world and in the universe is a diamond. That's a fact. You know, there are entire planets made of diamond. So, I mean, and they're in abundance, but that was created falsely in the 1930s by the Bears family. So when you start looking at how we look at value of things, to me, the value is a friendship. The value is compassion. I laugh about the fact, now I'm gonna have a conversation with people at UT here in the next couple of weeks, about the fact that right now, Jesus Christ, the things he did wouldn't get him into UT. But we value that education. You value the education, but you don't value what Jesus Christ did, and he was not a man of letters.
Right.
So how can you go back and say, well, what did Picasso create, and is his value? What was his doctorate in? What was, you know, think about the people that we study right now. None of them were men of letters. So at some point in time, you got to realize we've changed our value system to become a consumerist type process rather than realizing value is in what we do with each other. How do we lift up a society? How do we live in harmony with each other? And we haven't changed that conversation. And the reality is allowing people who have to keep that divide and misdirect our values, which is what's happened. And so it only becomes the almighty dollar, the almighty what you have in that you can possess.
So basically what you're talking about, Richard, is just capitalism.
Things become stuff. It becomes things, become stuff. Right. It get be about stuff.
You can't take none of that with you.
No, you can't take it.
Rather than about,
well, Jesus.
you know, I've always looked at things in terms of the value of a person's life is really no more, no less than the good they can do, or to the extent they can help someone else.
Right.
So to me, there are, you know, if we have Christian values, and to me, when I think about social justice, I think about, well, what is the role of, what's God's role? What's God's role?
Well, I even go, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, Jesus was a big social activist because he was out there in the street with the people. He was not in the four walls of the church.
See what they did to him, don't you?
Yeah, see, he got crucified. He was crucified. But you know that people got to remember that Jesus was out there with the people, helping
and
the people.
I want to take this with you. As soon as Jesus was cool as long as he was doing that piece before he got to the Beatitudes.
Yeah.
Jesus was cool in the community as long as he was healing people, as long as he was healing people and feeding people and turning water to wine and all that. He was cool. But as soon as he turned to the people and said, oh, by the way, y'all need to change what you're doing and get busy, they were like, oh, well, he got to go.
Right.
Jesus got to leave here.
Right.
Can we get a thief up in here? We got to go. Jesus got to leave.
He disrupting stuff.
He's right. No, I'm not changing who I am. As long as he's doing the work, we're good. As long as someone else is doing the work, we're good. But as soon as someone said, you've got to change how you live, you've got to change what you're doing because you're better than this, they said he's got to go and put him on the cross.
Well, I think we can get this thing on social justice by Ben Shapiro now.
Second principle that animates the left is group justice rather than individual justice. There's another name for group justice, that's social justice. Social justice, you should understand, is actually evil. Social justice, when people say it, it's an actual evil. Because anytime you put a modifier in front of a term that is inherently good, you turn it into a perversion of itself. So correctness, right? If you are correct, there's truth and there's something false, you are correct. Once you add political in front of that, you're not talking about truth and falsity anymore. You're talking about if you say the wrong thing, you get shot. Which is why, by the way, political correctness was a term that was coined by Mao. It was. Political correctness comes straight from the Maoist handbook. And the same thing is true of social justice. Justice is a good. You do something, it's either good or it's bad, and you get what you deserve. That's what justice is. Add social in front of that, and you're inherently saying injustice is better than justice. Because whether you are guilty or whether you are innocent is irrelevant. If you're a member of a group, then you must pay the price for something that you didn't do. Right? Social justice suggests that, you know, I, as a supposedly white man, you know, Jews became white people as soon as we became successful in America. I, as a white man, I'm responsible for paying slavery reparations, for example, in the name of social justice, even though all of my ancestors were busy getting killed by Cossacks in Russia at the time that slavery was taking place. And less than 5% of white Americans alive today have ancestors who ever held slaves. Every white person in America, though, has to pay because of group justice. How is that just? It's not. But it's group justice. It's social justice. And valuing the collective, valuing people in terms of groups rather than individuals, is how you get to the point where murder in the name of the collective is okay. All you have to do to see this is just compare the American Revolution, which was about individualism, with the French Revolution, which was about collectivism. Right? The American Revolution, John Adams wrote in the Declaration of Rights for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, he specifically wrote about all men being born free and equal with certain inalienable rights. It mirrors the Declaration of Independence in the United States. If you look at the Declaration of the Rights of Man in France during the French Revolution, it's the opposite. The 1789 Declaration of the Rights of Man says, the principle of all sovereignty resides essentially in the nation. No body nor individual may exercise any authority which does not proceed directly from the nation. It says law is the expression of the general will. So the collective always rules the individual. The group always rules the individual. And because the group always rules the individual, and because the group is always, this is a very utopian view of the world, because, see, the left doesn't believe in individual justice or that it can be achieved, but group justice can be achieved. But to pursue group justice is a utopian vision. You have to have this utopia in your head. Well, if the group is more important than the individual, and the individual is in the way of progress, just steamroll the individual. And that's why you end up with communism killing 100 million people. Because the bottom line is that if you are seeking equality of outcome on a group level, and somebody is an outlier, well, they're standing in front of the machine, and they have to go. Individuals are either tools of the regime or they are obstacles to the regime.
So much wrong with that on so many levels. And oh, by the way, the reason black people went to France was specifically what he just spoke about. People left here in America. Everybody leaves here, goes to France that was black in the 20s, 30s, and 40s because there was injustice there and not here.
Justice for them individually?
Individually and as a group. Treated differently in France than they were here. So the fact that I have someone who doesn't understand economics, the fact that I've got a Jewish man on television saying I didn't become white until I got here and started making money is ridiculous. And the fact that he doesn't understand the fact that he's benefited from whiteness in America. Right. See, that's the other issue. He wants to separate himself from, I'm just an individual. Yeah, but you benefited from being white in America, and I have had it's been detrimental for me to be black in America. As an individual, I get away, but as a group, I get treated like crap. And I laugh about it because there's no historical context. And anytime somebody talks about the founding fathers, the founding rapists, the founding slavers, and talk about what they said, and you put something that all men are created equal, while you had a slave, while you had slaves, are you kidding me? The hypocrisy of that conversation is beyond me.
Sheldon?
Well, for the video I got from it was just that, like going with saying what Richard was saying, is that there's so many things where he said is wrong because, social justice is, I think it's a good thing. But, he was talking about the definition of, that you feel that that they owe us something, which I don't totally agree with that. It's just that it's all about making amends or rewriting the wrongs of people that have been oppressed. And what he said that, your whiteness does get you over in this country, because I would say ever since this country's been founded, or whatever, our founding fathers, well, we're founding what Richard said, founding rapists, they have used their power, influence, and ability to oppress people of color, black people. So I think that we need to be able to rise up and be able to get our word, our voices heard out, that we are actually being oppressed and that some things need to be changed.
Well, my thing is people have to find some kind of way to live together.
Right. Cool.
Some kind, or that's what I think.
But do you agree?
In trying to do so, I don't know how you can, how it can be assured that everyone will be equal. Like he says, all men are created equal. I don't believe that.
Okay.
I can't dunk like LeBron. You can't either.
No.
You can't either, Richard.
But do you?
So we're not created equal.
Right.
We're created different. And if we all are differently gifted and giftedly talented and have different circumstances, situations, how can we all expect to end up in the same place?
Yeah, we all got different gifts and talents, but what we got to think about is that it's just that you got to think about how the system is made, how the deck has been stacked against a certain amount of people, and we are playing on unequal playing fields because there have been things like slavery. Black people been through slavery for 300-400 years. Then we went through Jim Crow. Then we went to mass incarceration. Then the crack epidemic and everything that affected our actual community. That our oppressors have had a big part of.
I don't even go further than that because I think there's a conversation about environmental justice.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is if I ask for justice from an environmental standpoint, as soon as I put environmental in front of justice, I prefer environmental. That's ridiculous. And
He's saying you pervert justice.
you can't pervert either one.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make any sense to say that the environment is separate and it shouldn't be justice for everybody, because the reality is we all experience the environment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real problem I have with the liberal conversation about environmentalists and their nonsense, because you act as if the environment that needs to be protected is only in your neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
The environment is the world that we live in, just as you said, how do we get everybody to have the same place? The reality is we're all on this planet.
Right.
And to say that someone who lives in Africa, who's been deprived of their resources, had their resources stolen from them, put in a situation where they can't have or shouldn't have, so that you can live a greater life here, makes no sense. Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is a social justice issue comes down to the standpoint is I should starve you out or treat you as less than a human being in another country so that I can have more here and a bunch of stuff. Again, it goes back to having a bunch of stuff.
Well, you can bring that environmental justice back here home to America. You got to think about it. You take for example Flint, Michigan.
Right. Well, yeah.
They still don't have drinkable water.
Chicago has lead in the water also. I mean, the reality is we have lead in our back neighborhood. We have pollutants in the air.
Right.
That's part of the environment. What I'm saying is when you start talking about social justice, we're saying everybody should have a fair shot at living humanely.
Right.
Everyone should have a fair shot at living humanely. But when someone says that, like he just said, it's only individual. So what you're saying is the justice system as we look at it, which incarcerates kids of color at 3 times the rate of white males. It doesn't make sense. Well, that's just the individual. So that's not the individual. So what you're saying is I'm more prone to violence. I'm more prone to crime than the white man is. And yet I'm looking at white kids out here killing people daily and they're not. Just today, a white man was arrested without incident that killed 4 people of color in a Waffle House. A white man killed 9 people of color in a church. But a black man running away from someone butt naked, running away is shot.
Right.
You can't tell me you don't understand the implications of that justice. John Crawford was in Cleveland, Ohio, buying a gun for his son in a Walmart. And someone called the cops on him in a Walmart buying a plastic gun and was gunned down in the Walmarts and no one paid the price. In a state where it is legal to open carry. They shot him without even asking him if he had a license to carry the plastic gun. So when you start talking about social justice, we have to look at how that brush paints everybody and how we get painted in one direction and white males, and I'm going strictly to white males, are painted in another direction. So Ben Shapiro is talking nonsense. But he's giving you just bits and pieces of something that sounds really, really good on the surface, but when you dig deep into it, it makes no sense whatsoever. And I go back to this country has treated people of color at a whole nother level. So those who are able to slide out and make a way for themselves that don't feel that constant downward pressure, and here's what I think is really funny. I'm reading a meme from a cop the other day, say I'm a black cop that had someone call the cops on me because I was looking with a flashlight for evidence of the crime that had already been committed at night. We've had cops in this country who were black who were shot by other cops looking suspicious. That's the justice we're talking about. That's missing. Ben Shapiro can bite it.
I'm not gonna say by,
I-
I'm almost gonna say by what, but almost.
I would love to have him in a debate one time. I would love to have him in a debate just one time and just chew him up one side and down the other, because the historical context is totally missing from everything he just said. In fact, the fact that you have, and we were not talking about we want individuals to give us their money, but we have direct traces of companies that have benefited, families that have benefited from slavery. Direct, you can trace it back, just like anything else. But if you act like that history doesn't exist, then you say, well, I didn't do it. I got that. I understand something.
Well, you got universities that have benefited, like Harvard, you got
Huge.
Georgetown,
Huge.
Yale.
Georgetown
benefit from
was
slavery.
in the news a couple of months ago.
Right. And they recognize
Right.
that you can trace that back, because they have the documents that we don't even know about. That's the sad part. A lot of the history has been erased for us, but that history still exists. You can still find the history if you know where to look and what to look for. In fact, if you go back to the DeWolf family, the second biggest slave owners in the country, they were in Rhode Island. Our problem is thinking that was only a Southern process. That's not true at all. Racism is alive and well in this country. Social justice needs to be spread everywhere. And the reality is, if we trace it back and look at what's happened and how they continually put that backlash to black people getting ahead or doing well for themselves, you start talking about economic justice along with social justice. Black people have done well several times. And every time they've gotten ahead and an enclave does well, you know what happens to them.
Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Slocum, Tulsa. You got Rosewood. You go down the line.
Yeah, Charlotte, North Carolina.
There's a whole bunch of enclaves that black people were doing well, and as soon as they said they were doing well,
too well,
social justice kicked in. And in case this way, it was just what he said: social injustice. Leave me alone, let me do what I do, and then we cool. But you make sure that you put your foot on my neck. And here's what I think was really funny. The people who put their foot on our neck never realize that putting your foot on my neck keeps you from moving too. So we don't make the progress as human beings because you think it's better to keep me from moving, which keeps you from moving also. You don't bank on my talent and skills that I bring. Like you said, the things I bring to the table, you don't allow me. You cut off your nose and spike the face to make sure that black man doesn't show up. That Latino man doesn't show up. That Latina doesn't show up. You don't want me to have the glory that also glorifies you. I don't understand how it is. I would tell people all the time, I said, when I walk in the door and I'm interviewing for a job, I said, you need me in the building because I've already dealt with hardship. I know how to navigate. I know how to negotiate. I know how to deal with hardship. You need me because I'm the one who can solve that problem. But instead, you go hire your retarded uncle or retarded cousin or some other dummy who's never had to do anything and then wonder why the company suffers. That's what's up.
So you're saying there's an overall social cost involved with racism?
Absolutely.
No question.
Absolutely.
And my thing is, I don't think any sane person can really debate whether or not racism exists.
That's exactly what Baldwin said. And if you're a black man in America and you're not really upset, you ain't paying attention at all.
Yeah, but then my question becomes, what good does it do to be upset?
Upset keeps me fueled, brother. That's why I look so young.
Let's go to the next video. This is your brain on social
video.
justice.
All white people are racist.
Hey guys, so I'm playing around today on the app Candid, which is basically like an anonymous posting app similar to 4chan but without the highly illegal porn, which I'm sure is a letdown for some of you. And as with really anywhere on the internet, there's an abundance of SJWs to make fun of, so let's get to it. So this person writes, what is the solution to the wage gap? Step 1, recognize that it's not real. It's been debunked so often and so thoroughly that it's absolutely pitiful that you still believe in it. Step 2, stop. So this person says, don't intersex people prove that gender isn't binary? So no, they really don't. For those of you guys that don't know what intersex means, it's actually not a crazy SJW term, it's a medical condition. It's when someone is born with a sexual or reproductive anatomy that isn't typical of male or female. For instance, someone could be born with a uterus inside and testicles outside. It's also used to describe things that are as broad as hormone imbalances that are present at birth. So this is a birth defect, it's a condition, it's not a third gender. So this person says, people seem to have confused not being politically correct with being as openly racist, homophobic, intolerant, as they want without consequences nowadays. So I don't think this is true at all. I think what you're actually seeing is that people have expanded the definitions of bigotry and racism and homophobia and all this shit so far that really anything can be considered racist these days. So of course you're going to see more racists if you think microaggressions count as racism. And of course you have, provocateurs and people who say controversial things for the sake of saying controversial things. Sometimes I guess I do that. But it's kind of like a natural balance, balancing out all the people who don't want you to be able to say anything. So some people say everything. And I actually don't see it as a negative. I see it as a positive that, free speech is alive and well, a right that is honestly pretty rare throughout the world. Who identifies as a pomosexual? I just found out about it and I really want to know more about it. What are you, fucking attracted to Pomeranians? Like, what? Here's a good one. It's funny that people say pansexuals don't exist because non-binary people don't exist. I usually laugh when people say that because TBH, their ignorance is hilarious. That's like arguing about whether or not food will make you live. There's no opinion. Literal scientific fact. Gender is a goddamn spectrum. 0 psychologists say it's a binary. We're here, we're queer, we're real. That is ill. I mean, look, you're probably right about one thing though. 0 psychologists say that gender is a binary, and that's because they're not biologists. Psychologists do not study or make declarations about what gender is or isn't. That's actually biologists you're thinking of who would never say that gender is anything but binary. So that sucks for you. I hate men. How do I become a feminist? Well, sounds like you're already there. You just need the costume now, which is basically just some blue hair dye and about a 75-pound weight gain. Although I really should not say anything because I have gained like 5 pounds in the last month and it's depressing as shit. When you realize that most white people suffer from cognitive dissonance, it's easier to understand why they behave the way they do, why they try to justify their positions on matters affecting black people. I'm not saying it's right, it just makes sense that they are mentally sick and need help. You know what else really sounds like cognitive dissonance? Convincing yourself that an entire race is mentally ill while also fighting against racism. By the way, that one was posted in the Black Lives Matter group on Candid. I'm sure that's a huge, huge shock. So this one isn't really crazy, it's just something I haven't talked about on my channel, so I wanted to respond to it. This person asks, thoughts on the term TERF, which is trans exclusionary radical feminist. So TERFs are hilarious. They're basically feminists who despise trannies, which I think is so funny, right? Because feminists constantly virtue signal about how welcoming their movement is of trans people and how much they love trans people. But they never address this sect of feminism that's distinctly anti-trans, so much so that it's in the title. And if you actually look into the history of feminism, that has a really long track record of being full of TERFs, so it's just a little less now than there was historically. It's really cringy. If you follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen me, go head to head with some of them, and it's always a good show. Reminder that mascots are terrible. They basically mock furries and otherkin. Do not support mascots. Don't, especially if they're animals. I'll pray for you. And I am tapped out for this video. So I don't want to mischaracterize the app as being like full of SJWs. There's actually a bunch of different people on there, a bunch of different perspectives. There's also a Blair White group on there. Not a lot of people, but it's there. So download it. And until I see you guys next time, bye.
That one is, to me, those concerns and thoughts really have nothing to do with survival.
I can't get
I can't understand what you're saying.
Mike, I can't get the time back, brother.
No, I
And the
understand what
brain
you're
cells
saying.
you just used up to listen. Oh my God. Whew. So here's the other issue. Going back, painting everybody with the same brush. And that's not what we're saying. That's not what anybody is saying. But the reality is to act as if racism doesn't exist, which is what we're doing is counter to that. What she's actually trying to say was that racism doesn't exist, homophobia doesn't exist, we don't understand gender, we don't. Look, man, we don't understand any of this at the end of the day. None of us understand it at the end of the day if you get right down to it. But there are people whose IQs don't bust 3 digits, which I just watched, who don't understand anything.
So the world is just big, as the Temptations would say, a ball of confusion.
Yeah, and the conversation we're having right now, same conversation we had 20 years ago, and 20 years before that, and 20 years before that. I'll tell you straight up, there's a whole lot of white folks I like, and a whole lot of black folks I don't. So that conversation is ridiculous also. But I'm not going. But here's the other thing I don't do. I'm not going online and jacking black folks up unless they do something really stupid that hurts the community. I just don't. I'm not dragging black folks down and beating them down. I've had to call some black folks up, say, man, you need to come down here. So, young lady, you need to stop that. On a private situation, I'm not. That's a color issue as far as I'm concerned. But what that woman just did right now, this white people need to be calling her ass up. Don't do that again. It's like that's like Taylor Swift singing, singing, September. Somebody should push Taylor Swift off the side and say, "Honey, what the hell's wrong with you? Don't do that. You're gonna embarrass yourself, and people who look like you are gonna be embarrassed behind that because they're gonna associate you with us."
So Taylor, stay in your lane. Stay in your lane, Taylor.
Yeah, say it. Get out the booth. See, my problem is nobody stopped her. My problem is nobody stopping these people who are doing damaging things in our community. Nobody's stopping these people. Nobody's saying, look, in my own community, I got little knotheads who do crazy stuff. But when they do stuff on my street, when I see them, I'm riding down the road, I stop. Young man, come here. That's the village conversation that we're not having. So a lot of that stuff she's talking right there has nothing to do with anything at the end of the day. She knows nothing about hermaphrodites. She knows nothing about this situation. I don't know about homosexuality. I don't step in that arena because I'm not homosexual. I don't know about that mind. I don't know what makes somebody attracted to somebody else. I don't even understand what that's all about. But at the end of the day, I know I'm trying to do the best I can by the people around me and my community. As I said, I got a bunch of gentrified people who've now been gentrified in my neighborhood. They couldn't afford to live in Austin anymore, so they're now in my neighborhood.
Right.
And move into a neighborhood, and the first thing you want to do is come out there and start changing shit.
So you're out east.
I'm out east Travis County. I'm out Del Valley.
Okay.
And I got people who, as soon as they get there, they want to bring their way of life, their way of doing things in the community that's already established. I said, before you do all that, come out here and talk to us. Come out here and be part of what we're doing. I don't care about your color. I care about the way you operate, the way you deal with us, the way you deal with each other. That's what we're talking about.
So you're talking about values.
Exactly. Compassion, empathy, lifting each other up, making wherever you are, drop your bucket and make it better. Don't come in the door and say, I got to change it because I need what I have is better than what you have. Bring that to the table. Let's see what you got. But if you put a McMansion beside my house, we're going to have an issue. Because first of all, you just blotted out the sun. I ain't talking about the land values. I'm talking about the value of the way I live. That's what we're going to talk about.
And see, it seems to me that not enough attention is paid to figuring out ways to live together peacefully.
No conversation.
And perhaps profitably.
But I ask people this all the time. Is your next door neighbor, if you're on next door neighbor, have you talked to your next door neighbor?
Oh, no, yeah.
And a lot of people don't even know their next door.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know the next door neighbor. It's just,
Right.
Well, that's how our society has became in the past 25, 30 years. We don't know each other and everything, especially in the black community and stuff, is that we are so scattered around. So we scattered sheep and stuff because before integration, when we were segregated, we was all we had no choice but to know each other. We was in the same community, we had the same, like I said, we used to go to the same grocery store, we used to go to the same movie theater, we used to go to the same doctor's office. Right. We had the relationship. But now since we are integrated, we out, so all spread around and everything, we don't know each other. I have a hard time having some brothers even acknowledging when you pass it by them, say, hey, what's up?
Right.
They look at you, oh, what's going on, brother? You all right?
Right.
But, it's just that, we as a people, we just, like I said, we do need to have that village mentality that we need to get back to where we can actually know each other because we can't do nothing by ourselves. All we all can do as a collective, as an organization.
Yeah, I can sometimes think of it this way as because of what's happened socially.
Right.
That we've lost our sense of community. When I was growing up in my neighborhood, if I was messed up on one in the neighborhood, that somebody's parents might tighten me up down there, and by the time I got home, my mama tightened me up at home because she didn't heard about it.
People in your neighborhood don't even know each other anymore.
But now, if you're in the neighborhood and you mess up down in the neighborhood and somebody's parents tighten you up, they want to sue that for somebody's parents.
Oh, yeah.
So we've taken on their garbage.
We got CPS now.
I've been playing on a baseball team. In the intro, you saw my old baseball coach. And we're practicing, Timmy does something to somebody. And Timmy said, I'm going to kick your butt. And the little white boy said, I'm going to sue you. And I used to wonder what that is.
Wow.
I'm going to sue you.
I'm going to sue you. I thought,
I think, Mike, and I think it comes down to the fact that we have trained ourselves away from each other. We've educated ourselves away from each other because there was a time, at one point in time in this country, that the HBCUs because we were forced to go, had a heyday. But as soon as we were allowed into the white universities, the first thing we did was thinking they had a better education. And I went to an all-black high school in Columbus until they kicked me out, by the way.
Marion Franklin?
Yeah, I went to Columbus, Ohio.
Marion Franklin?
Yeah. No, no.
No, I went to, when I was at Denison, there were 5, 6 guys who went to Marion Franklin.
Really?
Yeah,
this
they lived in
is it.
Southfield.
Yeah, well,
You live in Southfield?
Yeah, no, bro, I lived out east.
How'd I
was
miss
down
you,
in
bro?
South. And back when it was small, too.
Y'all been reminiscing.
Oh, yeah, we don't do that because we're going to the road, we'll never come back.
All right.
But I went to an all-black high school where we were forced to educate ourselves to another level. We were forced to get a better education because teachers actually made sure that you need to understand what's waiting for you when you finish after 12 years. But now you've integrated schools and the kids that are there aren't getting foot put in behind. I mean, let's get real. You got teachers, I run a program for kids, and you got to recognize sometimes that teachers just don't like you. And I got that. I don't care about the teacher not liking you. What you need to understand is that teacher doesn't like you is the same person who's going to wait for you out there that's not going to like you to get that job interview. You still got to get the education you
So
need.
you gotta
in
learn,
spite of
you got to learn how to negotiate
you
that.
navigate or negotiate. One of the two you got to do or both at the same time. What I'm trying to get you to understand is use all the skills that you have inherently, genetically, to go out here and do the things that I know that you can. But no one is giving that to these kids because a lot of times the parents are disconnected or the parents are overwhelmed. The parents themselves don't see the value of making sure their kids get everything they need in the school system. Sometimes they blame the system. I don't care about the system. I'm saying you need to go steal the education that they're giving you so that you can go out here and deal with this world that don't care about you at all. It really don't care. And you need to understand, I'm talking about the racism piece, I'm talking about the fact that right now, you're in competition with people, regardless, black, white, or indifferent. When you go out in the world, you're still in competition for whatever you want to do. You got to max out. And that's what I'm telling these kids. I don't really care about the racism at the school level. It exists.
Right.
What I'm saying is you got to find a way to get around it. When you see the teacher coming from you with the paddle in the hand or pointing at you or trying to push your buttons, you got to learn how to deal with it until you get out here and get a place where you can win.
That's should be looked at, viewed as merely practice for dealing with the larger
Right,
world.
exactly. But our kids are in a situation where they're not told what a win looks like. They believe that doing what they're doing right now is a win. I said, so you were in a fight or you jacked up the teacher or you cut somebody else out and next thing you know, you're in one of those alternative learning processes, you're in whatever it is, and next thing did you think you win? Did you think not getting an education was a win? I'm writing a book, it's called You Can't Sell Drugs If You Don't Know Math. I said, you need to understand, son, if you go out in the streets and you ain't got this math piece down, you will go broke or get killed.
Or get shot.
That's right. That's right.
Right, 'cause you'll come up short.
That's right.
You'll come
Don't
up
come
short,
up short
yeah.
with my money. Don't come up short with my drugs.
right.
I don't care what it is you do. You better not come up
Well,
short.
short.
You lose your business. So if you understand that process, I'm telling you, son, I don't care what they do. I'm telling you, did you get the math? I don't care if the teacher was a racist. Did you get the math? Did you demand you get the education you're supposed to from that teacher right there? That's all I'm asking. What I'm saying is, excuse me, don't disrupt the class or else you're not getting, excuse me, I'm not getting what I need right now. And I was wondering, can you transfer that knowledge to me in a different fashion so I get what I need to go out here and deal with this world? Ask a teacher that one time, just like that. I get that to those students. They go, I never thought about that like that. I said, I know. I didn't either. I was rebelling against a system that wasn't set up for me. I got that. I understand that. But nobody told me, son, you need to understand your rebellion is exactly what plays into the hand of you losing. What we also don't understand is if you got a losing hand, and you got a losing hand, and I got a losing hand, if we put all three of them hands together, we're going to come up with at least one pair.
Right.
We're going to come up with something with the three of us together. So how do we work together to make sure that my hand, maybe say, bro, you take my cards and go ahead and win today. You win today. You win tomorrow. Take the hand next week.
We have to figure out how to get a win.
Got to win. We got to start
Somewhere.
winning, regardless. And that's how you overcome all this madness. And by the way, once I start winning, it's one thing I do agree with Booker T on. Once I show you my value, it's hard for you to disrespect me. Once you understand that I have value, it's hard to be disrespected.
So in a sense, it comes down to the individual in a lot of ways. And to me, I think it really comes down to the family because the pictures you saw just before you started, like my mom and my daddy, they were sharecroppers. I grew up in an all-black neighborhood. I mean, in my neighborhood, Lincoln Heights, If you didn't go outside Lincoln Heights, you didn't see white people, except on TV. You had to leave Lincoln Heights, and then you see white people.
I didn't realize my neighborhood was black. I really didn't know. I didn't know what it was. All black neighborhood, man. I didn't know everybody was black because we was all black.
You just used to it.
It was just folks walking around.
Right, right.
Which gets to a point that when I was living in South Florida, I was shopping for a Christmas tree. And I ran into there's a lady, she was from somewhere in South America. And she just came up and talked to me. She said, you know what, mister? I didn't know people like you were black until I got here. She said, people in my neighborhood that look like you, they were just people in the neighborhood. And I think about that when I watch the NBA playoffs, and I see the Greek Freak, Tony Parker, the Frenchman. So what's wrong with LeBron James or Westbrook just being a damn American? And I always say, why you have to be all this description stuff? Why can't he just be Kumbo is what, just Greek? Parker's just a Frenchman. Somebody else is from wherever. Dirk Nowitzki just from.
Well, we do a whole lot in America, though. We play that separation game.
Yeah,
We have to. The powers that be like to play separation game. You talk about how many different separations there are in America. It plays well into money. The money interest keeps us right where we are, pitted against one another. That's how it's done.
But it's up to us to try to figure out a way to negotiate that game and to come out and to get a positive outcome despite the game.
Right. Well, they're going to have a meeting
what you
about
have
that
to
this
do.
week, and I was hoping to bring some solutions, but I've got a neighborhood meeting I've got to go to. But I was hoping to talk about the fact that the media is the most powerful tool in the kit for everybody. And as long as the media continues to portray us and divide us and show us in negative terms, rather than showing how wonderful we are individually and collectively, it's always going to be that way.
Well, you gotta look about the media. The media is gonna be controlled by who owns it. Who owns the media? Right. We don't have to control the media. Where are the black TV stations owned by majority black people or radio stations? We have no way.
BET is owned by OEM, as I understand.
Yeah, newsprint. We don't own newsprint. It's just that like Vibe and Ebony and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
they've been
during
brought
segregation, you had all that. You
Yeah.
had your little neighborhood newspaper.
We can't communicate with each other properly. I want to say you got social media now, but that's
Well,
still owned by
the
like
social
Facebook.
media piece right now. I think is very important. In fact, I got a gentleman I'm speaking to, James Addison. He's on Facebook with us that is actually creating his own channel.
Okay.
And I'm hoping that we can get that thing off the ground so we can actually have our own channel and then start creating the content we're talking about putting on there. There's also a gentleman I'm dealing with out in L.A., Dex Elliott, who's been in some movies and so forth. But I've been talking about him. Bless you. There's the movies we need to start making, the content we need to start creating. I saw some kids about creating games that educate about history. There's a lot of things that we need to do on showing how phenomenal we are. Everybody, I'm talking about everybody has phenomenal people within their category, regardless. And if we start showing all these people and all they've contributed, suddenly you start changing the way you see those people, because they're no longer those people. They're part of the history, the fabric of us as a human race. But the bottom line is, until you see me as a human being, you will always treat me as less than human. Right. And that's what we've been categorized as. That's how we've been portrayed. I don't want to see more slave movies.
Oh no, definitely.
I don't see them as slave movies.
Wow,
I didn't see
me and
Roots.
Richard had a good conversation about.
I didn't see Roots. I was afraid to watch.
Oh well, Roots is too. I hate they keep on showing that. But
I didn't want to get that angry, man. I just let me be.
I know we've been talking. Me and Richard were talking. I know he was talking about developing a screenplay for the Mansa Musa movie of the richest black man or richest man in the whole world. That's the type of movie that need to be shown to our kids. I know Black Panther was good and everything, all that, but it was fictional. But if you got a real life character that's being brought to the screen that people can actually relate to, that's something way different, you know.
Right. I'm writing a screenplay right now that's a trilogy about us actually leaving this planet and what kind of people we'd have to take to another planet to repopulate. Here's the funny part. Not realizing that if we go to another planet, we become the colonizers.
Right.
We speak about. We got to get off this planet though, because we kill it. We're killing this planet, and we got to get out of here in 200 years. And we finally realize we got to get. It's going to take us 100,000 years in space. And by the time we get there, when we finally get there, we realize we're the new colonizers. Yeah. Except We're the very tiny, teeny weeny colonizers. They're giants and we're amoeba-like. Which is, at the end of the day, who knows how we got here? Who knows if somebody didn't come down and colonize and create something on this planet? Who knows?
And which brings a certain question to my mind. When I look at the situation on Earth, and I wonder, and when I think about social justice, social justice, I say, what's God's role in this? Does he have a role?
That's a good
I
question.
know some people wonder even doubt that he exists, and I've had my bouts with that too, with agnosticism.
Have you ever seen the video that goes from the smallest thing man knows to the largest thing we'll recognize? It's on YouTube.
No, I've seen this one thing that you're looking at a hand, the cells inside the hand, and you back out. It kept going out, going out. And you see the earth and you see all this other stuff.
Right. It's one that actually starts at something that's like
grain of sand or something like that.
It's a micron. It's something, the smallest thing that we understand and realize that it's alive. It's a virus, something on that line, and it goes out, and it actually goes to like the size of black holes, and I'm talking about 100 million light years across, that kind of stuff. So you go back and go, wow. When you look at, and let's say God exists and God created all this. The magnitude of what God has created compared to what we're doing right now means we're either very arrogant or very stupid. Stupid. Like, if God created all this, he got time to be dealing with your problems on your little planet down there. Wait, y'all in the Milky Way, and that's a sub-galaxy. It's not even a big galaxy. To think that we're out, and everything's ever happened. Think about everything's ever happened in the history of man happened in the last 200,000 years of time. But the galaxy is, 40, 50 million years old that we can document, and that's the known galaxy.
Who are you? What are you tripping?
Right. So
get a grip.
Right. We need to put things in perspective.
Get a grip. Don't trip.
Put it in perspective. I'm just trying to live the best life I can as I go through this moment in time. As I understand time, I'm trying to live the best life I can and hope to lift up the people around me so they can live a great life, so that we can enjoy our time together while we're on this planet. Because I know my father came back from the other side and visited me. I don't know where he is right now, but his consciousness came back and spoke to me when I was going through cancer, and it was a real experience. I still feel the fingers on my leg where he grabbed me, told me to get up. I understand there may be something out here I don't understand. I understand that I don't understand. Right. And that's a empowering process, because I can't be that arrogant. I can't be that naive to think that I know it all, or have any of the answers.
That you got it all. Just like you understand it.
Right.
And there are things, to me, I think it's important to accept it. There are some things that you're not going to understand.
Right.
And everything may not be your business.
It will not all be revealed to you while you're here. That's right.
I just talked to a minister one time and say, you can ask God, but he don't have to answer.
Right. Exactly.
And so when I sometimes when I talk to people, it should be like this. You sure?
Really?
That's why I always ask this. You sure? Or says who? You? Oh, you in charge now? You run things?
Right. Every time you read a book that's related to religion, you ask yourself, who wrote the book? God. Oh, God. So, really? So God spoke to that person, and all those books are different? Really? Isn't that interesting? Why are they so different? And why did God speak different than this God?
I like the preachers call the preacher. Say, you call back number? Yeah. He call you back? You call back number? You got a cell number? What number came up on your phone?
For example,
the religion piece, we can talk all day about.
Well, I know, but part of that, people are tapping in there for social justice issues.
Right.
People use religion to talk about what social justice should look like.
Well, back in the 60s, the church was a very big part in the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
It was a very big part, because that was where we was able to meet, come together, and get information, and use that information and take it out into the community. But now the church has been silent. Why?
That's a good question altogether. That's a whole nother subject, bro.
All because of government funding, money. It's just that you can't. How you gonna talk bad about the government when you get a government grant or something like that? So it's just different. Like we said, a whole different subject we can talk about.
They worry about their tax exemption.
Tax exemption, yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
501c3 or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, they worry about that more than they worry about saving souls.
Right.
Well,
You know, to me, the church has become, it's a hustle.
Oh, yeah. Because, yeah.
I couldn't tell you how many guys back home that I've seen smoke dope preaching now.
it's funny you say that. I've actually had people tell me I should be a preacher. I said, you don't understand. I actually do fear God. And therefore, I could never preach. Because I don't want to make somebody mad at me and have to pay for it for eternity. See, I know I can go out and influence folks, but I might wind up saying the wrong thing and be really messed up. So I want to stay away from that territory altogether.
I know me and Richard had a conversation the other day or a couple weeks ago. We were talking about it'd be good to see that our churches and our community will be able to give back 90% of what they take in and use 10%.
90% of the 10 that they take.
Yeah, 90%.
10 plus.
And then they live off the 10%. They give back to the community 90%, live off the 10%, and use that money to actually build hospitals in our community, build schools, and also invest in black banks. You start a bank.
That's
You
part
know,
of the
you know,
borrow was trying to
why is it every Sunday that we depositing, well, on Mondays, we depositing over, I think, like 10, 15 million every Sunday to white-owned banks, whatever.
Man,
across the
these
country.
pastors can't even agree to bank
You know.
at one bank.
Right.
Bank of America,
Will not
yeah,
do
I'm a
it.
Chase Bank.
Will
all
not
they
do
do,
it.
You know,
Well, again, social justice comes down to the standpoint of how money is divided.
Right.
How do you use money to change the circumstances of a community? Because at the end of the day, if you control the police department and everybody else, then you can start getting the people that you want elected. Social justice comes from the standpoint of who is running the show.
Right.
And one of those things comes down to who's controlling the money.
'Cause actually, you know, we got a good example. We got the Asian community. They don't
Right.
care. Hey, are they out there marching and protesting?
Nope.
No, they take care.
Nope.
They take, number one, they're keeping their families intact.
Yep.
And number two, they're doing the education thing.
Right.
Nobody
Education,
ever came to America to vote.
build business, everything. Yep.
Nobody came to America to vote, man.
Don't care about
They
voting.
didn't come in and pick in protests either.
No, but see, that's the way we got the